Hello. All right. Nice to see people are joining. Yes, good evening. It is evening here. It is 8 p.m. Um, I. Oh, all right. I see more people coming in. Welcome to the stream, I guess. Um, okay, now the numbers are starting to rack up. Yeah, how is the audio? Can you hear me well? Are there any issues? Because we've had some audio issues before, but I think it'll be good. I'm hoping. Good audio? Oh, we have somebody saying good audio. Uh, okay. Let's rock this thing like it's a cradle full of screaming toddlers. Sure. Um, let's see if anybody else complains about the audio. If not, okay. Yep, we can hear you. Here we go. Okay, sounds good. All right. Yeah. By the way, as always, it is now slowly summer here in Portugal, so it's hot. You might see me fan myself every now and then. Maybe at some point I'll just have to go and like open a window or turn on the AC if it is hotter. Um, but yeah. So this stream. All right. I guess I've been talking about this over the last couple streams. I've been pretty open about it. So, I've not been doing very well with my health over the last couple months. Overall, I'm fine, but it has kind of hindered me from working at times, and it has slowed down some of my work. And one of the primary things that I do at OPR, besides running the company, is that I actually design the games, and so um, yeah, pretty much I have barely been able to kick forward the progress on the army updates over the last couple of weeks. Um, but yeah, and so I was hoping actually that by the end of June, by this week or next week, I was going to be able to do a private beta for v3.5 armies. But unfortunately, we are just not there. I'm not sure when we'll be there. I'm hoping end of July, ideally mid July, but realistically maybe end of July. Um, and yeah, so there is that. But I thought, to kind of try and compensate, I did work on a bunch of armies. And so I thought that considering that I spoke about some of the army updates in a bit more detail in the last stream or the stream before that. I spoke a little bit about Custodian Brothers. And so I thought, hey, how about this? I did that at the end of that stream. How about at the end of this stream, I will have a nice chunky section where we get to talk about a bunch of army updates. Maybe I will not talk as in depth about every army like I did last time about Custodians, but I'll get to talk about all armies or many armies, not all. Maybe I'll do 5 or 10 in general. So yes, so yeah, I guess this is gonna be kind of like the theme for this stream. I'm gonna run the stream as usual, and then at the end of the stream, I'm gonna do the big v3.5 army uh, presentation. I guess again, not all armies, but enough to give you like a good or a better sense of like what's coming at you. Because I feel like the one of the worst thing is when we don't say anything and then suddenly we make a big update and then people are just like caught by surprise that things are changing in their army, and that's just a really bad feeling. And so that's why we've been talking about it, or I've been talking about these updates for a long time now, maybe at least 6 months. I've been talking about them, maybe more. And and now I want to start giving more info. Now, an important thing, because I see a couple of people are popping questions in the chat. As always, I do not answer questions during the stream because I'm going through the presentation. There's a lot of stuff. I try to go relatively quickly, but still, it's a lot of stuff to go through. At the end of the stream, there's going to be a Q&A. So save your questions for then. and then you can ask me. Then I will make a thing. I will let you know, like, okay, now is the time to ask those questions, and you can ask those questions. So if you ask questions throughout the stream and you see that I don't answer, it's not because I hate you. It's because I'm just going through the presentation. Um, all right, I think that's it. Like I said, also in the other streams, big caveat: I have a disease. I am ill. So it could be. I hope not. But it could be that if I feel sick halfway through the stream, I might have to close the stream early and then maybe pick it up either later or another day. Again, I hope it doesn't happen. But big, big preamble, whatever. All right, let's um let's just jump straight into the presentation. And like last time, I will try to really like kind of like speed through the presentation so we have more time at the end, because I feel like the part where we get to talk about the Q&A and stuff like that is more interactive and people enjoy it, at least the people that are here live. Um, yeah, let's go. All right, so starting with the first thing. Yes, so OPR is going to be at Gen Con in, this year. It's at the end of July / beginning of August. I actually have a couple of things that I was told that I should let you know about. So we are in booth 7104. It's in the Makers Market hallway on the way to the gaming arena in this stadium. If you're there, you shall know where that is. We're doing the regular stuff that we do. So we run demos at the booth. We show off our products. We're going to be showing off Broken Truth. We give out free minis. We give out other goodies now. We've actually started giving out other things since UKGE. For example, we had stickers last time. And we're testing out different things. One important thing. So we have Learn to Play events on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and the signups are now open on Gen Con's event registration site. So make sure to go to gencom.com and sign up for the um, Grimdark Future demo event to get your demo at Gen Con. First time we're going to be at Gen Con. I am very curious to see how it goes. All right. Next thing, community events page. Yeah. Speaking of events like Gen Con and other stuff, we have upped our community events page game. Does that make sense? Whatever. So basically, until recently, what we did is every month, once, twice a month, we would make a post where we manually, essentially, like input, like all the events that were coming up that people that the Rangers submitted, and it was a bit like difficult to scroll and like tough to parse. But we were doing what we could with what we had, and now we have introduced a new dynamic community events page, which you can find on our website. We're actually going to further improve our community section over time, but we're waiting on a couple of things to do it. But yeah, the new events page is it's super cool because it allows you to basically filter by country, which is very important. It has other filters. You can search like specific cities or states or whatever. You can filter by the different types of events, and so basically, like, it allows you to more easily find the events that you want. Yeah, and in the end, it kind of looks like this. So you can see what is happening, when and where, who to contact, um, to find out more about the event or to register, what type of event it is, more info and stuff like that. So definitely make sure to check it out and see if there are any events for OPR near you soon. All right, moving on. We have, yeah, I guess I'll throw it out there. So we made a quarterly patch. Every quarter we have a patch that we put out. We made a patch at the beginning of this month. I'm checking right now. I think it was on the 6th of June. The quarterly patches are not very big. So, nothing huge has happened. We've generally updated a couple of rules texts for some of the more common rules that were misunderstood. And then we kind of did some small updates here and there based on what players told us that was wrong. The more important ones is that we added some new units to the Goblin Reclaimers, which of course you'll see models for when we release those, the Goblin Reclaimers, later this year. We've also decided to overhaul and rework both the Ratman clans for sci-fi, as well as the demon armies, so wormhole demons and rift demons, respectively. And basically, we for the Raven clans, I essentially wanted to make that army feel like a on par with other OPR armies. So it had like a major rework on everything. Like we changed the names of stuff to fit more with the lore. Added a bunch of new units, added a bunch of weapons and stuff like that. It still works the exact same way as a proxy army. So if you already had models for Ratman clans, there will be or there is a unit that you can put it in. Maybe that unit now has a different name, but it's still there, so you can play it. Whereas for wormhole demons, we actually wanted to start adding new stuff, because one of the problems that we see with wormhole demons is like, yes, it's and rift demons, of course. The problem with the demons in general is that it is 4 armies, so they have a lot of units, but most players will play one of them. Like I don't see a lot of players mixing the demon factions. And so if you're just playing, uh, change demons, then you're like, you don't have a ton of units at your disposal. So we added a bunch of units. I think we added on average 4. How much is it? We added about 3, 4 units per army, of which different armies got different things, but like some of them got 1 or 2 heroes. Yeah, we added some swarms. We added some bigger monsters to some of them. So we added a bunch of stuff. So if you play demons, that is great. And actually, I guess I'll throw it out there. So this is something we've been talking about for a while now. We have this idea in mind that we want to do at some point, something that we're calling right now the Demon Onslaught. And so the idea with the Demon Onslaught is that it would be cool to have a period on Patreon where, like, for 4 months maybe, every month we like release new models each month for one of the different demon factions, and essentially catch up to all of these updates, and give people some cool stuff. Also, it slightly makes our workload easier in terms of, like, we're going to be able to offer like a lot of models, but some of them will be models that we already made, so that we don't have to do that work, and we can just focus on the new stuff and spread it out in a way that's cool. But to be seen. And then what else? That's about it. That's about it for the update. So yeah, small patch. The next patch will be with the September update. So don't expect anything from now to then. Okay, moving on. We have the mission jam. All right. So we are hiring. Okay, this is an interesting thing. So, in light of many things at OPR, including the fact that I'm gonna be honest, I have a ton of work between running the company and being part of the whole creative process of, like, the books, the lore, the illustrations, the concept art, the sculpts. Like, I'm involved with every aspect of OPR, and that is a lot of work. And on top, okay, okay. I might be back. The message is gone. Please let me know when, if I am back. Mm, I'm double checking with my guys. Okay. People say it froze. Okay. Okay, but I'm back. All right, good. Okay, so restarting. Basically, all right, I work a lot, too much to be honest. And one of the big things that I work on is, of course, all of the games, which means the main rules, the missions, the updates, all of that stuff. And at OPR we release a lot of between quest campaigns and um, narrative campaigns and mission packs and all that stuff. We release a lot of missions and a lot of mission content for you to be able to play more than just the standard basic, like, oh, there's 3 objectives and go and fight over them, right? And so, yeah, basically, I am looking to hire somebody to help me out in making missions. This would be a job that's on a freelance basis. The idea basically is, if we are in full swing, in full gear, and like we're doing a bunch of projects all the time, the expectation would be that it's somebody that wants to work for us as a freelancer for this is someone that can dedicate themselves to make up to 10 missions a month, which sounds like a lot, but when you're good at it, or like once you're used to it, a mission, depending on what you're doing, takes between 30 minutes and an hour. So if on a very busy month we have to do 10 missions, you're looking at anywhere between 5 and 10 hours of work. So that's like working during a weekend or like spreading it out throughout the month. So it's not like, oh my god, this is a full-time job, right? It's a thing that you would sprinkle in. Of course, it is a paid job. We pay everybody that works at OPR for all of the work that they do. You need to really, the very important thing for me, for people that would like to work for us as mission designers, is that you need to have a strong grasp of not just like how OPR works, but also like how specifically we create missions. So one of the things is like, yeah, you might have great ideas for missions, but then you go and you write it and you use formatting that has nothing to do with how we write it. You use language that has nothing to do with the OPR language, and then essentially means that, yeah, maybe there's some cool ideas there, but then I have to go and essentially rewrite the mission from scratch. And at that point, that's not what I'm looking for, right? I'm looking for somebody that can be independent. So yes, and so then the thought was, so that was one of the thoughts, like I want to hire somebody for that. And then another one of the thoughts was, well, we have these writing jams that we do every year. But for those that don't know, actually, when I started doing the jams by now, a long time ago, maybe it was, I don't know, 8 years ago by now. I don't remember. Like when I started for the first jams, those were game jams. At the time, the game jam was basically you had 40 hours to write a one-page game. And whilst it was very cool, I think that was very demanding for a lot of people because they were like, I don't know how to come up with a game and whatever. And like, I know how to play OPR games, but I don't want to like create a new game from scratch. And so I thought, what if we did an equivalent of the writing jam, which is for story writing, and we made it for missions? So the mission jam. And so then now the idea is like, hey, why don't we combine the two ideas? And essentially, we're gonna make the mission jam, which is gonna be cool. It's gonna come in. It's gonna be in a couple of weeks. And the mission jam basically is gonna be, we're gonna extend the timeline from 48 hours to, it's gonna be a full week. So you're gonna have 7 days to submit your mission. You're gonna write a one-page rules mission, submit it, and then the usual stuff. There's gonna be prizes. Although actually we're updating the prizes, so now it's gonna be like this: if you're in third place, hold on. No. Let me double check because I don't want to say something wrong. The idea with the prizes is, the top 3 mission writers will receive 4 special digital reward minis. Every participant will also get 2 digital reward minis. So we thought, hey, like a lot of people take part in these. Why don't we like encourage them to like, or like feel like they got something out of it? Maybe you don't win, but you get something out of it. So you get 2 minis. If you are on the top 3, you get 4 minis. And then if you are in the number 1 guy or girl, of course, or non-binary, whatever, then we actually, if you want, we will hire you to write a mission. So that's one part. That's just the mission jam. And the second part is, if you are taking part in the mission jam and you actually would like to be hired, not just like, oh my god, I win and I get to make one mission, but you would actually like to be hired to like, work for us, then you will just we'll put it all in the thing, of course, but if you just put like job application in your submission, then we will know, okay, like we will be able to go check out your missions, and if we're interested in hiring you, we know that, well, you're interested in being hired. And yeah, of course, all of this is, nothing is mandatory, everything is voluntary. All of the missions that people post are public. We do not take those missions. So if you make it, this is your content. You do whatever you want with it. It's all public, and unless we specifically decide to agree with someone that we want to buy their mission, I guess, and put it in our stuff. So yeah, lots of stuff. We're also going to be updating our writing jam to work the same way. So all participants will get 2 minis, digital minis, of course. On the top 3 will get 3 minis, and on the 4 minis, sorry, and the top one will be invited to write an official one-page rule story that then would become part of our canon. Of course, paid. Of course, paid. If we get you to do something that ends up in our content, then we are going to pay for it. So yes, if you're interested, go on our website, sign up for the Mission Jam. Again, if you, of course, I'm looking for serious applicants, right? People that can actually keep up with the workload, people that actually understand all of the briefs, people that are actually, interested in working. I know we're all excited about, doing some game work and stuff like that, but I actually need someone that can actually help me. And then who knows what comes from there, right? Like, maybe you start as a mission designer, and then maybe you start helping me work on advanced rules, or maybe we'll work on other expansion packs or army creation. I'm not sure. There is anything could happen. So yes, I'm pretty excited about this. All right, moving on to the next thing, which is okay, the Void Sun threat. Yes, nice. Speaking of mission packs and mission creation, all that stuff, we have the Void Sun threat coming out, I think, in a week. I think it's next Thursday. I think it's exactly a week from now. So, what is the Void Sun threat? The Void Sun threat is our newest mission pack. This time, it's a mission pack for Grimdark Future. This is the first time that we're making a mission pack for Grimdark Future. But of course, important to note, this is as we're doing right now with the first 4 mission packs we're releasing, is this is going to be a remaster. So right now we had a mission pack called Maximum Threat, and it was just 18 missions, and that's it. There's nothing else in there. That's okay, but like nothing super special. And essentially we're doing a remaster, and now it's going to get cool cover art, lots of art, lots of story. There's going to be a lore behind what happens. There's going to be heroes that are part of this story, and essentially, so the way I like to describe it is that a mission pack is like, if a narrative campaign is like an action movie, right? Where it's like you read some story, there's a battle, you read more story, there's a battle, you read more story, there's a battle. Um, a um, a mission pack is like let's say a war documentary, where like you have a whole section talking about like the history of the conflict and the people that were involved and locations of battles and all this stuff. There's a couple of short stories in there as well. And then after that you have like a bunch of missions where you can essentially like recreate and replay these you know historic battles. Um yes, and yeah, and then it features also 4 heroes. So you're gonna have, so in this campaign there is jackals, high elf fleets, saurian star host, and plague demons. And here you can see 2 of our heroes, of course. On the left side you can see Rui, which is a jackal vulture hero, and on the right side you can see Trisara, who is ancient commander from the high elf fleets. And then we also have um, hold on, let me remember the names. We have Poison Zeal, which is our plague demon hero that actually comes on like a big snail, which is very cool. And then we have Tahashi, or Tahaxi, depending on how you want to read it, which is our Gecko Star Seer hero for the Star Host. So yeah, if you already own the maximum threat mission pack on Wargame Vault or Drive Through RPG, you will get the updated. You will have the updated pack as well. Of course, without the heroes, those are a separate thing. But you'll just enjoy it. It's free. You're just gonna get the update, all the cool new art, all the cool new stories, and all that stuff. It's just yours. But if you want the heroes, if you want the armies and stuff like that, then check out the Frontiers campaign for the crowdfunding, where you'll be able to buy the heroes. All right, cool. I am pretty excited about this one. It's I don't know. I feel like there is something about the mission packs. Hmm. It's if I may, it's such a different experience than the narrative campaigns, because the narrative campaigns, I feel, um, I guess in a way, the missions in the narrative campaigns are a little bit more conservative. What I mean is that, like, they're usually like they're a narrative campaigns happens over a couple of days or weeks. It all usually happens in the same location, so you're kind of having like some similar stuff. Like maybe you have a narrative campaign that's happening in the Saurian jungles. Well, then you're gonna see jungles and temples and volcanoes, but that's about it, right? You're not gonna suddenly be fighting in a glacier, right? Whereas a mission pack takes you on a story that will span like in this one. Actually, the story spans over an entire star system. So you're going from planet to planet. So you have different biomes and different planets that work very differently, and so you get a lot more variety of missions just due to that, And yeah. Anyway, that's the Void Sun threat. You can look forward to it. Um, for the next to come out next week. All right, moving on to the next thing, which is Broken Truth update. So for Broken Truth, all right, we have a small update for you, which is we basically want your feedback. So we have a GameFound page for Broken Truth, and essentially, like, we put up a little poll asking you, what do you want in the campaign for certain things, and also just a general open questions for you to put in the comments. What are you looking forward to? Like, we already shown what's in the box. We've already shown, there's the minis, which minis there are. There's the mat. There is the the tokens, the rulers, the dice, the special acrylic dice. There's the terrain. There's the little booklets and stuff like that. But what else would you like to see in this campaign, either in the box or as an extra out of the box? We are very curious to see, what you're interested in and maybe what we can actually make happen. So please drop us a comment there and let us know so that we can make this campaign even cooler. All right, now moving on. Okay, so we're gonna move on, and I'm gonna try and speed run through minis, previews, and concept previews so that we can get to the juicy 3.5 army update. So first things first, we have a new welcome pack. It has now Shadow Stalkers on the fantasy side, and it has High Elf fleets on the sci-fi side. And I'm assuming I might be wrong. Is this the first time we have High Elf fleets in a welcome pack? It might be. And then, of course, it has all the other stuff. It has the ruler, it has the tokens, and it has the 4 starting heroes for Quest and the 4 starting heroes for Star Quest. So a lot of minis, a lot of cool stuff. This time we focused a little bit on more elite units. So for the High Elf fleets, you have the Retributors, and for the Star Host, you have the, I'm thinking about the name, assault. Are they called assault something? Sorry, there are so many. There's so many units in the games. They are the. I'm checking out right now. They are the. Uh, wait, where are they? These are the Phantoms. Wait, is it the Phantoms? Yes, because they have like little. No, wait, no, no. Oh, these are the Reapers. Yes, because the Reapers have the heavy weapons. Yeah. Anyway, cool units, cool stuff. Enjoy it in the welcome pack. All right. Moving on to previews for the dwarves. Okay, so what are you getting in July for the dwarves? So this is soon. It's like next week. First off, we have the dwarf engineer. I think this is a really fun model. I love the little Dr. Robotnik mustache. It has a couple of different pistol options. It has a big wrench, and it's this cool backpack with stuff. Actually, in the final version, there's like smoke coming out of the backpack, but we didn't have it in this preview. Yeah, overall, a lovely model. Then you are going to get the. Okay, so we have the engineer, and then what can the engineer build? Well, one of the things that the engineer builds is this shield platform. So When we were designing our dwarves, we thought about how to give a cool twist to some of the things that are very classic in dwarf armies. And so we had the concept of the shield bearers, right? Usually it's just like four dwarves holding one hero on top of a big shield, and we thought, it does not really fit with the vibe of our dwarves. Our dwarves are a bit more, they have this coal thing, this coal theme, this forge theme. They have this, mechanical theme, and so we thought, what if the engineer builds this sort of platform, this shield platform. Actually, the shield, if you looked at it from the top, has like a really cool design on it. This sort of shield platform that moves, and you put coal in there, and like you turn it on, and then and it's connected actually with a pipe to his backpack, so there's gonna be smoke coming out of the backpack, and then you have your hero on there. The hero is removable, so you'll be able to put other heroes on there. So that's cool. So yeah, that's the shield platform. Then, as a main unit, you are going to get the bearded veterans. The cool thing about the bearded veterans is they have really huge beards. So usually dwarf beards, they come to the chest, but these beards go all the way down to the belt, which is very cool. Actually, the female versions have big braids that go all the way down to the belt, so they have their own big veteran beard type of thing. And here we can see a slightly already more elite version, or a more elite unit. So they have full metal shields now. The regular warriors had kind of like a hybrid of a metal shield with a what you call it, a metal shield with a wooden and metal shield. Whereas these guys now have a full metal shield. They have these more armored helmets, which have also like this sort of visor. And actually, the visor has these grates to kind of again remind of the forge, which is a big theme in the army. And yeah, they come with axes. They have a command group, all the good stuff you expect from a unit of elites. Actually, I need to double check something. I'm gonna take a note here. Okay, bearded veterans. It's actually very interesting that a lot of times, I'm doing these streams, and then I realize like, there's some things that I could maybe improve, and so then I go back. Anyway, all right, moving on. We have first time we're seeing the coal golems. So we have this whole concept of coal mining in the faction, of course. And then one of the things in our lore is that the idea basically is that after the orc occupation, the dwarves kind of left the mountains, like they kind of half left the mountains. Some of them actually fully left and went to other places of Tyria. But this main part of the dwarves kind of like half left the mountain. So part of them are like out of the mountain and they go coal mining, and the rest are kind of like in the mountains. But the mountains have kind of been depleted of resources by the orc occupation. Anyway, and as they dig for coal, they essentially discover that they have this magical coal that actually like transforms creatures, and that's actually what they use. Like their rune masters, their wizards use like this magical coal to live with. Whatever. The important thing here is basically like this magical coal influences the coal around it and can create these creatures, or these creatures come out of it, which are the coal golems. And so yeah, here you can see them. Here we have 3 coal golems. They come with big swords. There's actually a second variation that come with big hammers. And you are gonna start seeing other things in the faction which follow this pattern of the coal animal or coal beast or coal creature, which I think is very cool and makes it very unique. Of course, for people that like more classic golems, you just paint these in gray and they just look like rock golems. But if you paint them in black, they're gonna look like coal golems and they're gonna be very cool. All right, moving on to the last thing for the dwarves for July, which is the cannon. Yeah, last month I think we got the flame cannon. Was it last month? Yeah, I think so. And now you are getting the actual regular cannon. Following the same design principles as the other artillery pieces. They have the wheels that are made to be able to put them on the mining cart tracks. They have all these forge elements where like you drop the coal and stuff like that. And it's a cannon. It looks cool. I like it. But yes, it's a cannon. All right, and the last thing I want to show you is 2 things actually. So we are now going to be slowly adding buddies to the dwarf. So as you know, we have buddies in our factions, and you're gonna start seeing buddies get spread around. There are three types of buddies. I'm gonna show you two of them today. First off, you have the rock, or well, the not the rock, sorry, the coal golem buddy, which is basically like a small coal golem that helps out. I think we're gonna add it. So every there's three types of buddy, and you're gonna get for each one of them, you're gonna get a hero with a buddy, you're gonna get a unit with a buddy, and you're gonna get a piece of artillery with a buddy. And we were trying to create like really funny scenes and stuff like that. I think this buddy, for example, from the artillery is gonna have like a big sack with like lots of rails and stuff like that, or coal maybe that he carries around, and then there's playful versions of it, and we'll keep messing with it. But yes, so that's one of the buddies you are going to get. The next thing is the yes. So this is the coal beast buddy. We have not shown off the coal beast yet. Actually, we're going to talk about them later. But there is the concept of the beast riders in the army, and when we went in and thought like, what are we going to do with beast riders? We didn't want to go for anything again too cliche. We didn't want to go for goats. We didn't want to go for badgers. We didn't want to go for pigs. None of that really felt like it made sense with our lore and our dwarves. And so instead, what they have is these coal beasts, and the coal beasts are essentially, again, I kind of imagine it as some sort of maybe boars that were, or pigs that were, shuffling around and rolling around in the magical coal, or eating pieces of it or whatever, and essentially they became this new type of being, which we call the coal beast. And here you're seeing a buddy of the coal beast, which is basically like a baby version of it. And again, we're gonna add it to a couple of heroes, or to a hero, to a unit, and to a piece of artillery, and it's gonna be adorable. And yes, very nice. One thing, sometimes, so there are different types of buddies that we do. Sometimes we do buddies that are so small that they go like on shoulders or like on the head or whatever. And sometimes the buddies are bigger and they'll be like separate models. The buddies that we're actually working on right now are separate models. Okay, that is the dwarves for July. Um, yeah, I think that's it. Let's move on to the orcs for July. All right, for the orcs for July. First off, you are going to get the War Chief. Pretty sure that's the name of this guy. Essentially, the idea with the War Chief was we wanted to have a hero that can really represent this concept of like the hero that calls for war, and like and rallies all the troops to make one big charge, and a very classic orky vibe, like the big charge. And so we thought, well, how do we make this guy feel different? And so we said, hey, what if we added like a huge banner, and like he's like screaming, go forward, and like go to war. And I think it turned out pretty cool. And I don't think I've ever seen a sci-fi orc with a big cool banner. And I thought it really fit also with the more tribal nature of their lore. So yeah, a cool guy. Then you're also gonna get the jetpacks, sort of the jetpack orcs, which a cool unit. I love the way that we made the jetpacks. Like when we were designing them, again, we kind of asked ourselves, how do we do something that feels really ours? Usually people just put a rocket on a orc and say that's it, that's enough. But we didn't really like the idea of the rocket strapping, and instead we went for this turbine thing, which actually you're gonna see in other units in the future as well, like the hover bikes. Um, and yeah, I like the backpacks they have. They can have these masks, like these gas masks, or like these air masks, I guess. And they can also have these glasses, so each one looks a little bit different. And then they also come with a bunch of options. I think they all come with like pistols and hand weapons, and then they come with like special pistols and special melee weapons as well. Then you're also going to get, of course, a hero that fits the jetpack orcs. Relatively simple. He has like a special version of the jetpack. One thing that we are doing with the Orc Marauder heroes is that they usually have like a banner on their back to show that they're the heroes. For this guy, it didn't really make sense to us that there would be a banner on top of the jetpack. Maybe like they would get caught in the turbines and stuff like that. So instead, we made it as like a hanging backpack behind it, and I think it turned out pretty good. Also, here you can actually see it very well. Like one of the concepts that we have in the orcs is that the heroes have these sort of like studs that they wear. So if you pay attention, like if you are an orc leader, you have 1 stud. If you are an orc veteran leader, you have 2 studs. If you are an ultra veteran leader, you have 3 studs. And then we reserve the 4 studs for like really crazy heroes. All right, then you are also going to get the ultra veteran. So this, I was very excited to finally, showcase this unit. So the ultra veterans are essentially like the destroyers, the destroyer equivalent from the Battle Brothers, but for the orcs. Big chunky guys, around 50 millimeters tall. So like this, orcs in big power suits. These power suits are meant to, of course, be in line with the Walker and then the Great Walker, so you can see how the design reflects there. And yeah, they're really cool. They come with lots of different options. They come with different hand weapons. They come with different heavy weapons. All of their shooting weapons are usually like are like these combo weapons. So like you have the double machine gun thing. You have the flamer. You have the rocket launcher and stuff like that. And yeah, really nice chunky unit for the orcs. Then we move on to, yes, then you're also gonna get the ultra veteran leader, which, oh yeah, here you can actually see it. Like you can see that usually leaders have these banners on the back, so you can see one of those banners here. And yeah, here this was just like a pose test. He actually gets access to like a special super heavy great weapon, which you can see in his hand here, which is like in 3 times the size of a regular great weapon. And yeah, that I think is, no, there's 2 more things. You're also going to get the great battle truck. So we've seen the truck, the transport. We've seen the battle truck, which is basically the transport, but now with a cannon. Here is the great battle truck, which is even bigger, even chunkier. Actually, wait, I just realized I need to take a note on something here as well. Uh, mm, mm, okay. Yeah, so this is bigger. This is a tough 18 in the game, so it's pretty big. It's pretty chunky. It's like the size of the fortress tank from the dwarves, or if you have HDF because they came out recently, it's like the size of the super heavy tank. So big, much bigger than the regular battle truck, and it comes with all the regular options that you would expect. It has like the plow in the front. It has the turret, which can have different guns. It has the additional turret. Actually, in the back, you can mount a mortar. So there is a mortar that you can also have on this guy, and then also you have the option of putting um, all the extra guys riding it. It's called a boarding rig, which basically allows you to like assault better. And yeah, I think that's it for the actual units. And then I have a little preview for you, which is that we have been working on the Orc Marauders buddies. So again, a little preview. So but you're gonna start seeing these guys in units before you're gonna see the actual unit. So in the orcs, we also have the concept of beast riders. They have their own types of beasts. You're gonna see them later down the line. I think in a couple of months, and maybe it's in August or September. And yeah, the beast riders essentially ride these big beasts and whatever. And the buddy for the orcs is basically like a small version, like a baby version of the beast. So this can kind of give you a hint of what the big beast is gonna look like. Of course, this is like a cute baby version of it. And yeah, so we're currently working it. Unfortunately, due to like all the madness of changing things with the orcs, these were delayed, but we are working on them right now. We're gonna pose them, and then we're gonna start sprinkling them throughout units. So they might be added to units that were already released. So if you already have those units, you're gonna get an update, and you're going to get these guys, added for free, of course. All right, with that, we have the main factions done. Let's talk about the additional stuff. For Quest, we have the Vinci Soldier. Soldier? I think it's called a Soldier. Warrior? No, Soldier. The Vinci Soldier, a cool feisty adventurer for Quest. I feel like the Vinci are fighty in many ways, but I don't know. This chick feels extra fighty for the Vinci, and I like that. She feels Vinci, of course, but she has something a little more, which I think is very cool as like a soldier adventurer. Then for sci-fi, you are going to get the Blessed Sisters Ritualist. The Ritualist essentially is kind of like a warlock. if you want to look, for a comparison to fantasy. I think this model is coming out pretty cool. We have that tear mask, like the mask with the tear, the crying mask from the sisters, so she covers her face, which I think is a cool detail. You can paint that, white, for example, and then the cape, different color, and then you're gonna get a cool contrast there. And she's preparing some sort of dark magic spell. Yeah, very cool. I like the idea also that she's barefoot to really like have this more, um, I don't know, rough, warlocky nature. And then finally, you are also going to get terrain, and this time you're going to get the desert ruins. They come with, the typical stuff, the U-shaped ones, the L-shaped ones, the covers on top. There's also low wall versions and everything you need to basically, populate your table with ruins for your games. Um, okay, cool. With this, let's move on to concept. Oh no, wait. We need to check out the legendary. Okay, so the legendary for July is going to be the High Elf fleets. I think this one is the. Hold on. This is the avatar of. No, they're not called avatars of. This is the Oracle avatar. So, all right, we have the concept of the avatar in the High Elf fleets, right? Which is these sort of like um, they're kind of like these elemental beings that they use. So they basically, the high elves bring these elemental beings to life. The smaller beings are actually kind of like directly controlled by the high elves, and eh, but then like the bigger avatars, they're essentially much more independent. And the idea that we have here is that basically we're going to start exploring different styles of avatars for the high elf fleet. So we already have like the standard avatar that we've released, whenever this was, like a year ago or 2 years ago, and now we're checking out the Oracle one, which is a more spell casty avatar. But in the future, we might see other avatars. We might see an avatar for the retributors. We might see an avatar that fits more with the shifters, or with the gliders, or with any of the stingers. Ooh, that would be a very cool avatar. Or with any of the other units that we have in the game. And I think this is going to be a very cool way to have some big chunky models that are awesome and that really fit in the army. All right, cool. Now let's move on to concept art. So, moving on to concepts, we start with the dwarves. We start with the dwarf berserkers. So, as I explained before, our dwarves have this concept of the magic coal, and the idea for our dwarf berserkers is that essentially they have these backpacks filled with this magic coal that they huff. They inhale it, and this gives them essentially like these super rage powers that turns them into berserkers. And so all of the berserkers have like the backpacks and this huffing thing for the gases, and that's how they work, which I think is a very cool concept, and I love how it's turning out. And then of course you're also going to get a hero for the berserker. So this is the berserker leader. He gets a big fuck you hammer, and again he has the huffing things and all that stuff. So that's very cool. Then, as I said before, we have the concept of the Beast Riders, and actually, the Beast Riders are berserkers. So here, actually, this is a very old picture I found. So the guy on top is a regular guy, like whatever. It's another concept. But yeah, you can imagine that the beasts actually have a berserker on top. But actually, let me move on to the next screenshot, which is you're also gonna get, of course, a leader on the coal beast, and here you can see much more what it's going to look like. So you're going to have a berserker on the coal beast, and here you can get a sense of what a full, like, an adult coal beast looks like. So it's, like I said, this sort of like boar um, coal being hybrid. I've seen the model and it looks very cool. And then what else are you gonna get? I guess you're gonna get an artillery piece. Yes, you're gonna get it's called an organ gun here in this screenshot, but actually we renamed the weapon at some point, and it's actually called a burst gun. We didn't really want to go with the classic organ gun again. It didn't feel like it would really fit us, so we have the burst gun. The idea is that you have this cannon thing with lots, or like this gun with lots of little barrels, and then they will be like pop, 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 shooting in sequence, and you get this sort of like burst effect. That is pretty devastating. All right, so with that, we have all of the releases for the dwarves. So Berserkers, Berserker Hero, Beast Riders, Beast Rider Hero, and the Organ Gun for July. Then, moving on to the Orcs. So, for the Orcs, you are going to get the Gun Master. Pretty badass character. He has like cool glasses and a cigar and like big gun and like lots of ammo. We kind of had a similar-ish concept for the HDF. We thought it fit really well here for an Orc hero, and it looks really cool. So this is one of the heroes that you're going to get. Then you are also going to get the Infiltrators. Ooh, really cool unit. I really love how these are turning out. When we were when we were reworking the faction, we had at the time we had the concept of the Orc Commando, and the Commando. I don't know. It didn't really fit to me with the general style of our orcs. I never felt, in a way, our orcs already kind of feel commando style. When I think about like 80s action movie commando vibe. And so when we wanted to make a more spec ops unit, commando didn't really work. And so we thought, like, what if we change them into infiltrators, and they have these like cool capes and these cool like goggles that remind me kind of like of Sam Fisher and Splinter Cell. And we thought, yeah, let's do it. And I think it's coming out really cool. So you're gonna get a unit of infiltrators. I think it's like 6 poses or 7 poses. I think it's like 5 main poses, and then you get like a special sniper rifle pose, and I think you also get a special rocket launcher pose. But yeah, so these are the infiltrators, and then of course you're gonna get an infiltrator hero again with the cool cape. And here, the way that we solved the problem of having the banner, because again, an infiltrator with a big banner, that doesn't really make sense. Is that actually like he has a banner hanging on his cape, which looks very cool. Then you are also going to get the hover bikers. So we saw the jetpacks, which have like these turbines, and then at some point we were kind of like designing the all the units in the army. And in the old version of the orcs, we kind of had this the unit called the mini copters. And the thing about the mini copters, I feel like it was always a little bit confusing because I think the name really did not make it clear what they are, like how big they are, how they function, whatever. And then at some point, I was kind of looking at the rules, and I was like, okay, but if you really think about it, these this unit essentially is like jet bikes from other armies. And so then I was like, okay, let's rename it to hover bikers, and and then it kind of makes more sense like what role they fit in the army. And then when we had the turbine concept from the jetpacks, it was like, oh, of course, like we have to put the turbines here, and this is how you get the hover bike. The hover bikes actually have quite a few options. I think they have like 3 different types of guns. I think they have like machine guns, they have plasma guns, they have rocket launchers. They can be they have like these kind of like, you can see them here, like these fuel barrels, but they can be swapped for like bombs. And I think one of the poses can also have like a bomb spear, which is like their special like um, you know melee bomb weapon. So yeah, hover bikers, these are gonna be cool. All right. What else do you get? I think that might be it. No, the final thing you get is the actual walker. Take this screenshot with a big grain of salt, because this was a long time ago, and it's kind of gives you a sense of it. But if you really want to know what it's going to look like, imagine something in between the ultra veteran and the great walker. That's what the final walker is going to look like. And the walker has a bunch of options as well. I think it has like, it can have like different melee weapons, like different claws, different saws. I think it has like 4 weapons that it can have on each arm. I think it has like a triple machine gun, a plasma cannon, a flamer, and something else. A rocket launcher probably, and then also has like a weapon that it can mount on the shoulder. Lots of options, and yeah, I hope you enjoy them. Okay, then what else do we get? We get quest heroes. Yes, so you are going to get the Wood Elf Monk, which I thought was a very cool concept. I like the idea of the monk as a class, because it gives us like some really cool, a way to make models that are really cool, that are like unarmed. and like fighters, because usually they always have like swords or spears or whatever. And so making an unarmed fighter is very cool, and I kind of like how this is turning out. And it really feels, I don't know, it feels fitting for an elf, at least to me. And so that's for quest, and then for star quest, you are gonna get the star host commander, and the commander is kind of like a paladin if you want to think about it in fantasy terms. So he's kind of like chunkier, and he's, he gives buffs, and he has like a sword and stuff like that. Yeah, so these are quest and star quest for August. And then let's look at, oh yeah, terrain. So we're coming to the end of the desert terrain. So you're going to get scatter terrain. Here you can just see some of it. So the scatter terrain is made to be small enough to be placed on bases. So you can customize your bases. There's also bigger scatter terrain that you get with it, which is kind of like chest high or like model high, like infantry model high. And on top of that, you're also going to get a full set of desert bases. So, you can look forward to those. Additionally, you are also going to, of course, get a legendary model. Okay, this is really cool, but take this screenshot here with a huge grain of salt, because uh, the final thing is not really going to look like this, kinda. So this is a really old picture from before we reworked how the walkers are. So the walker doesn't really have a head, and he has this kind of like weapon that's not held, but it's like his arm. Big thing. The final model, I have seen it. It's gonna be an insane, I have to say, an insane diorama of HDF versus the Alien Hives. It does feature at the center a big walker. I think flaming. You can see it on the top right. It's more representative. You can see a guy with a flamer. It's gonna have like a big HDF walker flaming a an alien hives hive lord, and then completely surrounded by grunts and swarming like the HDF, and the HDF are shooting at them, and the grunts are jumping, and you can see like lots of details, like models being shot, others are eaten, others are firing rockets. There's like doggies in there. Very cool diorama. This is gonna be absolutely awesome. But yeah, so this looks cool. You're not gonna get exactly this, but what you're getting is way cooler. So yeah, you can look forward to that. And yeah, so that's the legendary, and then you are also going to get some new loyalty rewards. So for the loyalty rewards this time around, we're gonna have alien hives on one side, and here we have the concept of the epic burrower. It's a burrower, but he's cooler. Let's put it that way. One thing that we're trying out, this model hasn't been completed yet. One thing that we're trying out with this model actually is we want to try and give it the shape of like a cobra at the top, which you cannot really see too well here, but um, and yeah, I'm very curious to see if we can pull it off. But overall, it's gonna be like a cool new version of the burrower with like a cool pose and cool new extra details. Then on top of that, you're gonna get, of course, another loyalty reward, which is a loyalty reward for the dwarves, and this is the Golem Titan. So we showed you the coal golems. Now imagine this guy, but the coal golems, but huge. This is the coal golem Titan, and yeah, it's gonna be a huge model. I think it's like 130 millimeters tall. Uh, Big chunky guy. Lots of details, lots of coal and runes and stuff going around. Maybe some buddies. Yeah, this is gonna be a cool loyalty reward, and I'm looking forward to seeing it happen. Woo! Okay, everybody's still here. Oh yeah, actually, we have way more people now. Okay, with this, I think we can finally move on to the saucy part of this stream, which is the v3.5 army previews slash September army previews slash call it whatever you want. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to open. Hold on, let me open it here. I'm going to essentially go through a bunch of my notes for various armies that are being updated. I think we're gonna look at. Let me see. Depending on how quick this goes, we're gonna look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 different armies. And I'm going to give you an overall vibe of some of the things that are being updated. Now, Like I said last time or the time before, there are basically like 5 categories of updates that the armies get. They're gonna get a universal rule, which is basically a rule that everybody in the army has. They're gonna get a universal rule combo. So some units have a rule that like goes well with that specific universal rule. They're gonna get what we're calling an army boost, but I think maybe army boost is the wrong name. Let's call it like an army specialty, which is like an additional army special rule that is only for them. They get an army debuff, although again, I think we're gonna probably need to rename this to like an army mark. Basically, it's like a way for you to mark an enemy to get some sort of debuff or buff or whatever, it depends. And then they're going to get a weapon rule that is specific to their army. To not make this too long, I'm only going to cover 2 things, which I think are probably the 2 most important things, which is the universal rule for the army, and we're going to look at the army specialty, which is like what's their cool special rule that they get that some units can upgrade with. Um, the rest of the stuff is cool, but I think it's gonna take too long if I try to cover everything. Um, yes, big, and if there are any other important updates, I'm also gonna talk about them. But big, big, big caveat: this is all very much work in progress. There are already a bunch of things about the stuff I'm going to talk about that I am 100% thinking of changing. So take everything here with a huge, enormous grain of salt. Take it with a rock of salt. Take it with a boulder of salt. Take it with a coal golem, a salt golem's worth of salt. So yes, everything that I'm talking about here, nothing is final. Everything is subject to change. I can already tell you now, just as like a pre-warning, a lot of the things here I feel like or some of the things here I feel like are relying a bit too much on tracking things with tokens, for example. That's something that I want to reduce. So right now we'll just explain how the rules work in their current state, but they're probably going to change. Yeah, I'm gonna jump into it in a second. Yeah, one more thing that is very important is these army updates are not going to be specific unit updates. So do not expect, besides some things, and we will talk about them now, of course. Besides some things, generally speaking, we are not updating units. So we're not going to change how units work. So if you're hoping that, oh my god, the way that the loadout of my DAO battle suits is not something that I really like, and I would like you to change it. That's not part of this update. We are keeping already now. There are enough things that are being added that I don't want to overwhelm players with new stuff every year. So we're gonna go slow. There's still a lot of stuff, but we're gonna go slow. We're not gonna be updating units. So your army will 90% play the same as always with some additions. No panic, please. You don't have to throw your models away. You don't have to throw your units away. You don't have to get new stuff just because of these updates. It's all fine. Let's relax. And part of the reason why I'm doing this preview is because I want people to be able to like be calm and understand like what's coming, and like that, hey, it's not a drama. Your army's not getting gutted. It's not getting completely destroyed. All right. Cool. I hope that is good. I guess let's jump into it. So I'm gonna literally go alphabetically, and I'm gonna look at, like I said, the first 14 armies with some caveats for Grimdark Future. First we're doing Grimdark Future, and then of course we're gonna be doing fantasy. But today I'm only gonna talk about the first, I guess, 14 armies for Grimdark Future, and we're gonna go in alphabetical order. So first thing first, Alien Hives. So Alien Hives. What right now? Alien Hives do not have a universal rule, and so we wanted to add one. And so their universal rule right now that I'm thinking is called. Yeah, one thing also. Right now, the names of all of these rules are super temporary, so do not get hung up on the names. The names are very like work in progress, garbage names. Usually, the names that I'm using right now are super like descriptive of exactly what the rule does, not necessarily of flavor. So you know so right now they have their main rule, their universal rule is called Horde Courage, and basically every unit in the army gets this, and it's very simple. When a unit with Horde Courage is near another unit with Horde Courage, it gets a bonus to its morale roll. That's it. So basically what it does is it makes it so that when you have your big swarm of alien hives with like grunts next to shooter grunts, next to a monster, next to now, as long as they're all sticking together, they all get a morale bonus, and that's it. That's it. Don't panic, right? That's it. You just get a cool bonus to your morale when you stick together. Your units are not getting nerfed in their morale. This is just a bonus, right? You're not getting worse at morale. You're only gonna get better, which is good if you're near each other. Which basically, encourages players to make these, bigger blobs of like aliens and kind of like play in a more fluffy way. But of course, if you have units that you're like, no, I don't want this unit to have to stick near anybody else. I want them to just like go out and fight. You can still do that. You don't have to stay close to each other. And actually, although I said I'm going to try not to talk about other things, one of the things about like their universal boost is, or the universal combo is that basically you have a rule where you can give that bonus to units that are outside of that range. So even if somebody goes out of that range, there is a way for those units to get a bonus. Okay, so that's the universal rule. Then let's talk about the army specialty for the alien hives. So the universal rule, every unit has it. The army specialty, only some units can upgrade with this rule. So again, if you don't like it, don't use this upgrade. You don't have to, right? Their army specialty is called instinctive. Instinctive basically works like this. If when the unit activates, it is able to attack an enemy unit either by charging it or by shooting it, it must do so, but when doing so, it gets a bonus to its attack. So essentially, the idea here is that like you have some units that are super instinctive, and like if they activate and there's an enemy nearby, they're like, fuck it, we're going in. So you charge and you get a bonus. You of course are losing some level of control of those units, right? Because the enemy can purposefully put like they can purposefully put like a garbage unit close to them, so you must charge that unit, for example. So there is a trade-off there, but when you charge or when you shoot, you get a bonus to that action. Again, I thought it was really nice, really fluffy. It feels like a sort of thing that the alien hives might have and want to put on some unit. And as always, if you don't like it, if you're like, I don't want to lose control of my unit, do not upgrade your unit with this rule. You don't have to use it. And that's it. That's the alien hives. So I hope if you're an alien hives player, you are calmed. You're not worried that I'm destroying your army. It's all good. Just your guys now get more morale like a morale bonus when they're close to each other, and they get they can upgrade with this instinctive rule. All right. Then let's move on to the next army, which is Battle Brothers. Okay, there are some important things here about Battle Brothers that we have to talk about because Battle Brothers have detachments, right? So every detachment has its own rule, and right now, Battle Brothers already have a universal rule, which is fearless. Every Battle Brother has fearless, and every Battle Brother detachment has fearless, and then they get some other stuff. So here the idea is that we are going to change it. How does it work now? The universal rule will not be fearless anymore. It will be a new rule called steadfast. Steadfast is essentially an upgraded version of fearless. It's fearless plus the unit can't be routed and instead gets shaken. So this is not like no retreat or undead where like, you just lose some models but you stay active. It's like, okay, if they lose a melee, for example, and they would be routed, they don't get routed, but they are shaken. So basically, it allows the Battle Brothers to stay on the board when they would otherwise flee, but they're still shaken. So it's not like you're suddenly like, oh, you're immune to morale. You're not immune to morale. You just have a slightly better version of morale, and all of the detachments also get this. Important. A lot of players complain about the fact that all detachments get something cool, right? The Blood Brothers get Furious, the Wolf Brothers get Counterattack, and all that stuff. But the vanilla Battle Brothers don't have their own detachment rule, and so they're like, that's kind of lame. Like, why would I play vanilla ones? So now the Vanilla Brothers are also kind of counted as a detachment, and they're gonna get their own special rule. And so with that, I essentially went on and I reworked all of the detachment special rules, and I will talk about some of those right now. Hold on, I have them here on my list. Okay, so the regular Battle Brothers are gonna get special. Again, right now the name is temporary, but basically the regular vanilla Battle Brothers get what we're calling. Sorry. I don't have the. Okay, I don't have the name for it, but basically, what they get is they get +1 to hit on rolls of 6 when shooting within 12 inches. So they get a bonus when shooting nearby. This is actually kind of a way to simulate the rapid fire rule that a lot of people are like, oh, I miss rapid fire in my Battle Brothers. And so the thought was like, hey, why don't we give vanilla Battle Brothers rapid fire? It doesn't work exactly like in other games, but we thought it would be a cool thing. So your vanilla Battle Brothers have this. Your Blood Brothers keep their Furious. So that's cool. If you're playing Blood Brothers, you keep Furious. The Dark Brothers right now have something called Grim, which basically is undead. As I've spoken about this before, we are removing undead as an army-wide special rule. We don't want that anymore. It's too strong for morale mitigation. And so instead, they're gonna get essentially a version of like self-repair. So they get like a 6+ um, a 6+ regen that cannot be denied. Hold on. Night Brothers. Sorry, I'm thinking about the names. Night Brothers continue having Aegis, or it's called. It's called Resistance, really, which is basically like their defense against magic. Great, so they keep their thing. So if you're playing Dark Brothers, nothing changes for you. Night. Sorry. What are they called? Sorry. Watch Brothers have a get right now they have basically a rule where like if you're within 12 inches you get a bonus to shooting. We're essentially keeping that, but we're slightly changing that bonus, where instead it's something that right now we're calling versatile. Essentially it can give you a different type of bonus depending on the situation, but whatever, you still get a bonus when shooting. And Wolf Brothers still get a bonus like counterattack. So to recap and make it fast, everybody gets steadfast. All the detachments get steadfast. Um, Vanilla Battle Brothers get a bonus to shooting when they're near enemies. Dark Brothers get a defensive bonus rather than their undead bonus. And Watch Brothers get a modified version of their current bonus. That's about it. So, okay, universal rule. We spoke about that. Yes. Okay. Sorry. Then we have the army specialty, right? So again, this is a special rule that some units can buy. You don't have to use it if you don't like it. Uh-huh. And this one is called strategic push. And basically, the idea is that you have a bunch of units with strategic push, and then at the beginning of each round, you choose what kind of strategic push you're doing. So basically, you can choose. I don't remember exactly which ones they are, but I think right now it's like a movement buff. So basically, you choose like, okay, this round my strategic boost is for melee, and so all of your units get a bonus to melee. Or you say my strategic boost is for shooting, so all of your units get a bonus for shooting. So it's a really nice way to kind of have this. You're kind of telegraphing to your enemy, of course, what you're doing, but you're getting a bonus, right? So it's like, okay, I want all of these guys to get a cool bonus to shooting. So the enemy knows like, hey, this round, like I need to make sure that I'm defending myself against shooting. And you kind of like can choose and change your strategy depending on the thing. Again, a fun little rule. I thought it would like really fit in with like this tactical nature of the Battle Brothers, and it's optional. If you don't like it, you don't have to use it. But yes, so all the guys with strategic push can basically get a bonus to one thing or the other thing, and it is your choice. All right, so Battle Brothers. I hope this all makes sense. I know that Battle Brothers is probably one of the most played armies in the game, and I hope Battle Brothers players can now be, relaxed and understand that like, hey, like none of these changes are crazy. You already had Fearless. You get a better version of Fearless. And actually, you get another bonus if you're Vanilla Brothers. And if you're playing one of the detachments, you get a better version of Fearless. And, some of them have a different upgrade than what they have right now, but they still get a nice chunky bonus. Okay. All right. Moving on to the next army. Okay. Which is Blessed Sisters. Okay, just one thing. I'm not sure if my chat has frozen, uh, or if this is just normal. Just making sure because before I had a connection issue and I don't want there to be Okay, so far so good. Okay, all right, moving on. Next army is Blessed Sisters. Again, an army that currently already has a universal rule, which is Devout, and pretty much they are keeping their Devout. We're slightly changing it, where right now Devout only applies to shoot. Oh, I see a bunch of people writing tests. Okay, it works. Basically, right now, Devout only applies to shooting, and the idea is that they would get a different version of Devout, which basically can apply to shooting and it can apply to melee. So they already had Devout. You keep your Devout, everything is cool. And then their new army specialty is what right now we're calling Faith points. Again, this is one of those that I'm not sure if I want to keep exactly as it works right now, but basically, at the you can choose. So if again fully optional, if your units if you upgrade your units with faith, I think actually there's a name there, like it's the God Queen's blessing. Whatever. Those units basically get faith points. You get a bunch of points at the beginning of the game, and then you can spend those points throughout the game to deal bonus hits. So I think the way that it works is like imagine you have a unit of basic warriors. You fire your 10 assault rifle shots. 5 of those hit. 2 of those hits, land a 6, and you say, okay, I'm gonna spend 2 faith points and add 2 additional hits. So basically, it's a way to like you have this resource that you can spend to get a bonus to the amount of hits that you deal when fighting. Again, fully optional, nothing crazy. It's just, very simple interaction. You have these points, you spend them, you get extra hits. It's similar to maybe something like, I guess, okay, if you play an army that right now has a rule called Devour, it's essentially an optional Devour. Right now, Devour is basically when you're fighting, every roll, like you roll a bunch of dice, and every 6 is an additional hit. And this is essentially like, hey, every 6, you can choose to spend a point to deal a hit or not. So, again, really basic. So your Blessed Sisters are not getting destroyed. Everything is cool. All right. Moving on to the next army, which is the Custodian Brothers. So we spoke about Custodian Brothers last time, and I want to basically give you an update because we actually decided to change them. Essentially, we took last time I spoke about them. Their rule, their universal rule, was steadfast, which was fearless. The one that Battle Brothers get, right? It's just fearless, but you can't be routed. And instead, we decided to change it, give that one to the Battle Brothers, and instead, um, what they will get is something that right now we're calling advanced tactics, which basically means like once per game. And again, all of these rules, big caveats, they might change and so on and so forth. Um, and the idea here is that once per game, every unit that you have, once per game, you can basically give it an extra move. I think it's like 6 inch, a 6 inch free move. So like the unit activates, you say, hey, I'm gonna activate advanced tactics on this guy or in this unit, and now you just move it 6 inches, and then you do the rest of your regular activation. Here, basically, the idea was, hey, like, Custodian Brothers have kind of like this issue where it's a super elite army where you end up having like very few models, which means that a lot of times you can very easily get like stretched thin. And what I see sometimes happening is that like you'll get to round 3, round 4, and the Custodian brother is winning, but just because of the few amount of units that they have, they're not able to like move those extra 2, 3, 4 inches that they need to win just because they don't have all the models to spread out. So the idea is like, hey, look, once per game, here is this bonus move that you can do, which will allow you to like, okay, adjust a bit better to the fact that you have few models. Yeah, that's it. Nothing special. Nothing too crazy. Once per game, you get a bonus move. Their army. Their army specialty, yes, are we calling it a specialty? Sure. Their army specialty is, oh my god, right now it has a terrible name, which is like a marking for a boost, whatever. I think actually I have a flavorful name for this rule. Let me double check it. I think I have a cool flavorful name for this rule somewhere. Hold on. I think it was called like God Kings. Wait, I think I have a cool name. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to find it. Aha! spotter of heretics or heretic spotter, whatever. Basically, the idea of their army specialty is that this is actually for heroes. Their hero can basically be a spotter of heretics, and so essentially, you before the game begins, you choose an enemy unit and you mark it, and you say, okay, that's the heretic, and then your friendly units get an AP bonus when shooting at them. Again, it's an optional rule. You don't have to use it, but it's a cool way to kind of have like a little bonus thing that the custodians can do where they essentially like pick out already at the beginning of the game like those targets. And I think it leads to an interesting interaction with the other players as well, because it's like, okay, you know, this unit has basically been marked for death, and now you're like, okay, what do I want to do with it? It's like, do I want to keep it away? Do I want to actually throw it in the fray? Do I want to use it? Do I want to protect it more? Do I want to be, you know, all that stuff. All right, cool. So that's Custodian Brothers. I hope none of these changes are too crazy. Moving on to DAO Union. Okay, DAO Union, again, one of those that, like, you know, big caveats here. But so one of the things, I'm gonna preface this with why I decided to go for this. One of the things that we hear a lot about DAO is that people say, okay, I love DAO Union, and they are shooting. They're meant to be like this super shooty army, right? Like shooting is their thing. And right now, yes, they're pretty shooty, but you know, could we make them shootier, right? And the thing is, like, I like the idea of having a super shooty army and that it's like, you know, gets bonus for shooty. But I also feel like sometimes when you buff an army for shooting a bit too much, they become almost too versatile. So I like having a little downside there. So basically, the idea here is that all units get a special rule called Methodical Shooter. Methodical Shooter basically means when you're using a hold action, you get +1 to hit, which is pretty good because already almost all units in the army have quality 4 plus when shooting, which means that without having to use spotting lasers, without having to do anything, if you just hold, like if your grunts hold, they now get +1 to hit, and they go from 4 plus to 3 plus. So suddenly your regular guys shoot like Battle Brothers, which is pretty tasty. But of course, it comes with a little downside, which is that you need to use a hold action. So you know, ups and downs and that sort of stuff. And then their army specialty, well, it's spotting laser, right? We already have it in the army, so why give them something different? Like, we already know and love it. Actually, DAO Union in many ways were an inspiration for you know, some of these army updates, and so you know, they're there. And spotting lasers, as always, are optional upgrades. If you don't want to use them, you don't have to use them. We may or may not do some update to how spotting lasers work, but generally speaking, I right now I expect them to stay exactly the same. Yeah, that's it. Again, if you're playing DAO, nothing crazy, right? Make sure to, like, you know, get in position where you want, take a hold action, and destroy the enemy through shooting. There is one caveat. I'm not sure if I want to do this update now or maybe wait for when we eventually decide to make models. But I do think that over the years, at some point, a couple of like melee units snuck into DAO, which I feel is very anti-thematic, I guess. And honestly, those are just like kind of stuff that I just invented. There is no model equivalencies there. Nothing like that out there on the market. And so I might remove some of the melee options in the future. Honestly, I think the only melee option right now is that basically the battle suits can take swords and shields. And I kind of want to remove that because I feel like the hybrid approach was really covered by the Eternal Dynasty, where like they have the Oni with the swords and shield and all that stuff. And I feel like DAO should be really all about shooting. And also, like, when we separated the DAO from the Jackals, right, which were the more melee part, you know, the Jackals became about melee, and these guys are more about shooting. Um, yeah, there you go. So get ready to shoot even better, but you know, taking a hold action. All right, so that's the DAO. Moving on to the next one, Dark Elf Raiders. Okay, here there is an interesting thing, and so I'm going to talk about one more thing than usual. So the Dark Elf Raiders. All right, their universal rule that we have right now is called harassing. Harassing basically allows you to have a small extra movement when after shooting or melee. It's essentially kind of like an inbuilt hit and run, and every unit has it. Important thing here, I am removing army wide fast from all elf armies, but but very important, it's being replaced with their own custom, movement buff. So in this case, the Dark Elves are losing fast. Sorry, but they're getting harassing, and harassing, like I said, is like after shooting or melee, they get basically a free move. So the idea for me here is like, okay, they're kind of like these raiders, they're kind of these pirates, and it's like they're super mobile. So like they will go into melee, and then after melee, they will move, they will shoot and duck and weave, and you will see a lot of like different erratic movement around the board, which I feel is very, um, very thematic for the Dark Elf Raiders. And again, nothing too special, nothing crazy that you need to keep track of. It's just, hey, after you shoot, after you move, after you fight a melee, you get an extra move if you want. Their army specialty is something that right now I'm calling pain fueled. Again, super optional, right? You don't have to buy this on your units, you don't have to upgrade them with it, and so on and so forth. But if you do, pain fueled basically it's after you destroy an enemy unit, you basically put a token on the unit and it gets a bonus to hit and a bonus to defense. So essentially, it's rewarding those units for getting kills. So again, interesting ways to play it. It's like, okay, do you want to put this on a unit and then soften up the enemy and then make sure that this unit destroys it so that it gets a bonus and then it gets better? That's a cool way to do it. Do you want to just like make sure that like your do you have a unit that's really strong that you believe can like go and get kill after kill after kill? Another way to do it. And different stuff that you can then mess around with. But yeah, the idea here is that this unit, as it gets into more and more fights and wins more and more fights, as it destroys more and more units, it gets better and better, um, which is pretty cool. I think it's a nice dynamic that we don't currently have in any OPR army. And I also kind of like how it kind of balances out, right? Because it's like, imagine you put it on a unit of witches, and it's like, they're gonna get into one melee after the other and destroy enemy units, which is great. But they're also gonna lose models. So, okay, you're losing some models, but the models that remain are getting better, right? They get more +1 to hit, for example, and +1 defense. And now they're like, okay, now they're able to win that next fight more reliably or survive the next combat, and go on, which I think is pretty cool. Again, optional rule, you don't have to use it, and so on and so forth. One more thing I have to mention about the Dark Elf Raiders. So, like I mentioned, there are a couple of army-wide things that I'm removing. Like I am removing army-wide. We removed already a long time ago army-wide regeneration. I'm removing army-wide undead. I'm removing army-wide fast and swapping it for other stuff. In this case, harassing. But another thing that I'm removing is army-wide rending and army-wide poison. Basically, I don't want army-wide. Um, I don't want army-wide anti-regen. So the way that it's going to change is basically that the Dark Elf Raiders on their barbed weapons, which currently all of them have poison, instead of having poison, they will have a new rule just called lacerate. It's poison, which is enemy has to reroll blocks of 6, but without the ignores regeneration aspect. So basically, um, yeah, like the problem with an army that has all poison is that essentially like if anybody's fighting against them that has regeneration, you're basically invalidated. Like, okay, you cannot do anything against them because everybody has regeneration, anti-regeneration, right? It's not a it's not an opt-in feature. Um, and yeah, that's it. So, instead of having poison, they will have lacerate. They will still have ways maybe to get poison here and there, which, could be cool. But generally speaking, this is it. So yeah, Dark Elf Raiders, pretty simple. Instead of fast, they get harassing, and then pain fueled, which makes them stronger as they fight. I understand that this might be a change that feels maybe a bit more like, oh, like you're changing how my army works because they're not fast anymore. But if you think about it, you now actually are getting just a different type of advantage, because being able to move after fighting, either shooting or melee, is actually really powerful, right? Because before, like, okay, you're fast, but if you're on a shooting unit, fast on a shooting unit only does so much. But instead, now you can shoot and then you can duck into cover, and that's pretty strong. Or you can fight in melee and then move out from terrain, or move towards an objective, or essentially you're using fighting as a way to advance on the board, right? You move, you shoot, and you move again. you move, you fight, and then you move again, and like so it allows you to like advance in a very crazy dark elf raidery fashion. Okay, moving on to the next army, which is dwarf guilds. Okay, I think right now I'm not sure. Let me double check. I think right now dwarf guilds all get fearless. Is that right? Hold on. No, they don't. Good. I'm wrong. All right, so dwarf guilds. All right, their new universal rule that we have right now. It's called grudge. Basically, when a dwarf, and everybody has this, right? When a dwarf guild's unit is killed, you place a token on the unit that killed it, and other friendly units basically get a bonus against it. So it's kind of like a revenge mechanic, right? Like if you have somebody that's, well, when somebody kills your unit, everybody's like, go against that guy, which actually creates an interesting dynamic as well, because it's like, it kind of, as the enemy, you also might be like, oh, okay, wait, like, do I want to damage units and then use like my weaker units to make sure that like they're killed? Or do I not care and I say, look, I want to actually rack up the kills on one unit, and so that unit gets grudged like a million times, and then kind of like you're soaking up the grudges and stuff like that. So it also creates an interesting dynamic and interaction between players. And again, super basic, nothing special, right? It's just you play, your units die, you put grudge tokens, and you get a bonus when attacking them, which I think is pretty cool, and a very simple way to to give them a nice bonus that feels flavorful. Their army specialty right now, it's pretty simple. Again, it's optional. You can buy it. You don't have to. It's basically what I'm calling like declare grudge, which basically means that at the beginning of the game, you essentially can put. You can just pick an enemy unit and already put a grudge on them. Because basically, okay, let me kind of explain this. One of the things that I feel about the grudge mechanic is like it's pretty cool, but it means that you essentially have to wait for your units to die before you get your special thing, which on one side, it's fine, right? Like you're just playing as normal. But on the other hand, it's like, okay, but like what more can we do? And so declaring the grudge, I thought, was like a simple way to be like, no, like you don't. You can buy this upgrade where like you can already start using your special thing from the beginning of the game, and then it will also come in as your units die. Yeah, and that's it. Again, I'm really trying to make sure people understand that like nothing here is crazy. Things are pretty simple. If you're playing dwarf guilds, honestly, if you really want to, you can kind of ignore the grudge mechanic until your units start dying. But yeah, it's pretty simple. Your army plays in a cool new, your army has cool new things you can play with, but overall it plays the same. Elven Jesters. Okay, Elven Jesters is an interesting one because it has a lot of the problems that we're trying to solve, like universal fast, like fast on every unit, rending on every unit, um, and stuff like that. So one of the things, so these guys are actually getting some changes. Luckily, it's one of the least played armies, so I hope um, if somebody has a problem with it, it's not too bad. But basically, right now, every army, every unit in the Elven Jesters gets 4 special rules on top of any other special rules they have. They get dodge, they get fast, they get stealth, and they get strider. And that's it's messy. It's a lot of special rules that you have to keep track of, and so on and so forth. So, oh, sorry, just one thing. Somebody asked, do dwarves still have army-wide slow? Yes, they do. Anyway, so right now they have the Elven Jesters. They have dodge, they have fast, they have stealth, and they have strider. Dodge and stealth essentially are just 2 facets of the same rule, because dodge is basically -1 to hit in enemies get -1 to hit in melee, and stealth is enemies get -1 to hit when shooting. So we are just going to replace that rule with another rule that is called which is called evasive. And basically evasive is that evasive is enemies get -1 to hit in melee and shooting against this unit. So whoop, we've consolidated that into one. And then instead of having fast and strider, they are going to instead have a rule called nimble. What is nimble? When an Elven Jester's unit is activated, it immediately gets to teleport by 3 inches. So again, it's not fast, right? It's not the same thing. It's kind of its own special thing, which it's kind of like a little teleport. If you're playing an army that has teleport or that has bounding, essentially it's it's a guaranteed bounding, or it's a shorter range teleport. So I like this idea that the jesters basically like are constantly kind of like slightly jumping around and teleporting, and it's cool. Like the 3 inches is not oppressive, it's a little teleport which allows you, for example, to go over a gap. It allows you to cross an enemy unit. It allows you to cross a friendly unit. Maybe there's a strip of like a minefield there, and you just like whoop, you just teleport to the other side. It's only 3 inches, so it's not a huge move, but it's there. And so yeah, so instead of having dodge, fast, stealth, and strider, they now simply have nimble and evasive, and they can do all the cool stuff there. Their army specialty, yeah, their army specialty is what we're currently calling, again, not a very fluffy name, but I'm just calling it ambush redeployment. And so basically, it means that once per game, when the unit is activated, you can just take it off the table and put it in reserves, and then you can deploy it again, starting the next round as if it was an ambush. Which again, I think it's a new thing for OPR, and I think it's a very cool, very special thing for the jesters that kind of like it really feels in line with their kind of like weird nature, and they're kind of like everywhere, and you don't know how to track them, and they're kind of crazy and kind of like um chaotic. And so the idea is like, yeah, like you're gonna have a unit that maybe like captures an objective on this side of the board, and then like you put it into ambush, and then now it appears on the other side of the board to fight, which I like. Again, this one is an army specialty, which means it's an optional rule. You have to opt into it, you have to buy it, and if you don't like it, you don't have to use it. So yeah, this is an army that is getting some more changes, but I don't think that when you play it, you're really gonna feel a huge difference in terms of like the stuff that you can do that you couldn't do before. One important thing that I have to say is that right now all of the guys have they have these pistols that have rending. And like I said, I'm removing army-wide rending. So instead of rending, their basic guns now have a rule called fragment. And fragment basically means that when enemy units roll a 1 to block, they take 2 hits. So it's pretty good against infantry. It's less good against tanks. But it's I like the idea. Basically, like you go in, you shoot a bunch of guys. They fail their defense. Oh shit, they failed one. Okay, boom, more hits, and like of course, fragment wounds from new hits from fragment cannot cause new hits from fragment. It's not a recursive. It's kind of like trying to think about like it's kind of like the current magma rule. Although magma is anti-rending, it's kind of like the current radiation rule, where like radiation is when the enemy rolls a 1, they take an additional wound, but instead of taking an additional wound, you take 2 additional hits. So yeah, a cool new rule. And again, an army that admittedly has slightly more fundamental changes than other armies, but that I think overall still plays about the same. All right, moving on to the next army, which is Eternal Dynasty. Okay, Eternal Dynasty. This one, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure that I'm gonna keep the changes, or like they are right now. I will explain. So their universal rule right now, all of them have fearless, and basically the idea is that we would replace fearless, and instead they would have a new rule called honor bound. Honor bound basically means like this. Basically means this. They pass all morale tests on a 2+, which is pretty good. So basically it's like fearless, but like a superpower of fearless. So instead of passing a morale test on a 4, you pass it on a 2. But if they fail a morale test, if they roll a 1, then the unit is destroyed. So on the one side, I think it's really cool. It's very fluffy. I like this idea that it's like this let's say high risk morale army. But on the other hand, I feel like in some ways it's kind of like Undead 2.0. And that's the part that I don't really like. So this one, take it with a grain of salt. I'm probably going to change this rule. But we might try and keep something else in line that's honor bound. Maybe it couldn't be something on purpose, like maybe you declare a test of honor, and then I don't know. I'll have to think about it. Their army specialty, actually, speaking of tests of honors, is called duel, and duel works like this. At the start of the game, you pick an enemy unit, and if you kill that unit, then you get a bonus. You get basically like extra hit and extra defense. So basically, like you are saying, like, hey, this unit must kill that unit. So if my unit of ninja kill that unit of assault grunts, then I've completed the duel, and then I get a bonus until the end of the game. I'm actually kind of playing around with the idea in my head that if they lose the duel and if they get destroyed by that unit, maybe that unit should get a bonus. But that's a toughie. I'm not sure if I want to do that. Yeah, and that's about it. They are again, if even if these rules come in like honor bound, a duel again, of course, is optional. You have to opt in, you have to buy it, right? If honor bound does come into the game, as it spoke about it right now, again, it's not like the army plays different. If you're playing DAO, just enjoy it as Eternal Dynasty, just enjoy it as you have um, so far. All right, moving on to the next one, Goblin Reclaimers. So Goblin Reclaimers is interesting because this is like a new army. Unfortunately, I had designed unfortunately and unfortunately, like when I designed the Goblin Reclaimers and essentially split them from the Orcs, there were a couple of things. Like on the one side, I didn't want to make too big changes. I didn't want to make changes that were too big because I didn't want people to be like, "Oh, what the hell? Like my army works differently." But also, I didn't want to already make the army using the new system. Well, maybe I should have. Whatever. So there's changes coming to them. All right, their universal rule is right now a crappy name. It's called Surge Warrior. Forget the name, but basically the universal rule is it's essentially devout. Um, so it's devout, but it gives AP. So it's like when you're attacking enemies within 12 inches. If you roll a 6, that gets AP +1. Simple, easy. It's devout. Well, it's a special version of devout. And their army specialty right now, it's called enriched trash, which basically means that which you can basically like give it to a bunch of units. Again, you have to opt in, you have to buy it, and then once per game at the beginning of the round, you say, "Hey, I'm activating my enriched trash," and all of those units get a bonus to their attacks. I think it's an AP bonus right now. Yeah, again, pretty simple. It's there is something. So I am very hesitant in general with like once per game army effects. I think that they have maybe there's a bias. Okay, I think that they have a place in the game, but I think that coming from other games, there's a bit of a bias against it. Like, um, it's a bit of a hated trope sometimes. So I'm not really sure. Um, and yeah. Anyway, so that's their two rules. So Surge Warrior, which is basically devout, and then their army specialty is the enriched trash, which is a once per game bonus. So again, if you're playing Goblin Reclaimers, if you just picked them up because we created the army, don't worry, we're not changing the army in a way that it's not going to still be cool and fun to play, and it's still gonna play pretty much the same. All right, moving on to Havoc Brothers. For Havoc Brothers, all right, slightly similar thing with uh, 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 um, sorry, slightly similar thing with Battle Brothers, where now the vanilla ones also are going to get a special rule, right? So, okay, first off, their universal rule is what we're currently calling a packed boost or a risky boost. Basically, the idea is that um, when you activate a Havoc Brothers unit, you can choose to try and make a pact with the gods. When you do a pact with the gods, basically you roll a die on a 2 plus, you get AP +1 when attacking until the end of the round. Pretty cool. You made the pact, cool. But on a 1, you failed your pact, and enemy units get AP +1 when targeting you. So, a bit of a risk reward type of situation where you say, okay, like I really want to make this activation count. They're gonna fight, and I'm gonna make a pact with the gods, but there is a small risk, 1 in 6 chance that the gods turn their favor against you, and now you enemies get AP +1 against you. And actually, even though this is a universal rule which every model gets, it's also an opt-in rule. So if you are like, 1 in 6 is still too risky for me, then you don't have to take the pact with the gods, and you can just play on normally. In terms of the thing that I said before, is like okay, every disciple's army right now gets a bonus, right? So I think, oh god, if I remember correctly, it's like lust gets fast, war gets furious, plague gets putrid, which is basically self repair, so like 6+ regen, and change gets stealth. And the vanilla ones are going to get fearless. So it's not as good as the fearless steadfast from Battle Brothers, but it's still a cool thing that makes them a little bit special. In terms of their army specialty, right now what I have here is the Havoc boon, and basically it's just like you can buy it on some units, and basically it's like once per game you get a free pact without having to roll for it. So it's like, hey, I want to make sure that this is happening this time and I'm not taking any risks, and then you do it. I think that right now it's okay. I think maybe it would be cool if it's a guaranteed pact and it has an additional bonus. Maybe that makes it more appealing. But again, it's an optional rule. You don't have to use it if you don't want. And that's it. Later, when I get to it at some point, of course, I'm going to be reworking the demons, all 4 demons army. When those armies are reworked, whatever changes happen there will then also be reflected in the various disciples. So you can expect that the disciples will have some changes as well once we get to it. So yeah, once again, opt-in features. You can do the pacts or not, but overall, your guys still play the same. All right, moving on. Okay, we're getting actually to the last 3 armies. So High Elf fleets is the next one. High Elf fleets, again, we are removing army-wide fast. But for the High Elf fleets, I actually thought, you know what? I kind of like the idea that they still retain a relatively vanilla movement upgrade, because I guess they are like the most vanilla of the elves. And so what they get is agile. Agile essentially is fast, but instead of +2/+4, it's +1/+2. So it's a small fast boost. You're not as fast as you used to be, but it's also not a huge difference. And it helps differentiate the various elf factions and what kind of speed bonus they get, right? So it's like you have the high elves, which get agile, so they just move +1/+2. You have the dark elves, which have the harassing, which is like they move after attacking, and you have the jesters, which have I forgot the name, nimble, which is a small teleport when they activate. Then their army specialty is psi augmentation. We call it right now. Might want a better thing. I kind of like the idea of like but it's such a long name, like because they have the whole like elemental thing, so I kind of like the idea of like elemental points. But basically this is like the faith mechanic in um from the sisters, where like the sisters, they can buy these faith points, which then they can spend to deal extra hits. But instead for them, they can buy these points, these augmentation points, which they can then spend to get extra AP when they attack. Again, optional. You don't have to buy into this if you don't like playing with the points and whatever. And I'm still not sure if I want to have these mechanics with points and stuff like that. But yeah. Oh, and one more thing. Yes. So, like I said, we are removing army-wide anti-region. So we're removing army-wide rending. So their shard weapons now will have uh, um, a special rule called crack, rather than having rending. And crack basically is when you roll a 6 to hit, you get AP +1 to the attack. They still are going to have access to rending in other places and anti-region and stuff like that. And actually, I might want to look into the army and see that I can add um, some more rending around the army. Um, but yeah, that's kind of like their thing. So once again, if you're a high elf player, don't worry. You're slightly slower than before. Your shard weapons work a tiny bit different, but you still have an AP bonus thing if you like, and everything is good. Um, all right, next one. Human Defense Force. Human Defense Force. Again, an army that I'm not really sure if I'm gonna keep it like this, but Human Defense Force, I'm trying something new. So right now, the big thing about Human Defense Force is that you basically have heroes that can like give give a rule or a bonus to another unit, and then you have this whole thing of like if the hero unit has a radio and another unit has a radio, then you can extend that range. it's okay, but it's a bit messy with how it works. And so the idea here is that instead it's going to be simplified. And instead, the hero bonuses are not the hero gives another unit furious. Instead, it's more like other armies where you have a regular aura where like the hero and its unit get the bonus, right? So you don't really have that aspect anymore. But of course, we are keeping the command and control aspect of HDF, which we're doing right now through a rule called coordinate. So every unit in the army has this rule called coordinate, which basically works like this: once per game, per unit, of course, that has it, once per game, after you finish your activation, you can activate another friendly unit within 9 inches that hasn't activated yet. So essentially, what it allows you to do is every other activation, like you activate you and you know units need to stay close. But essentially, you can activate out of order. It's a once per game thing, and it's a it's not a huge advantage to activate out of order, right? It's not like you're getting bonus activations like before, but it's an interesting way where like now you can kind of coordinate things. So, for example, you could coordinate your artillery, right? Where you say, okay, I'm going to have this artillery fire, and then I coordinate with this other artillery, and it fires. And again, you can only do it once per game, but it's a cool way to do something like that. I'm going to be honest, this is a really cool concept. I am unsure about how balanced it will be. And so there's going to be a very nice fine tuning that's going to have to happen when it comes to um, balancing this rule. Also, of course, because of this, the function of the radio would now change. And instead of the radio being this thing where like, oh, the leader has to have a radio and another unit has to have a radio, and then whatever, we make it becomes simpler where it's like, if your unit has a radio, it can coordinate with a unit that's further out. So usually your coordination range is 9 inches. So you activate, and then you say, okay, I'm going to activate another friendly unit within 9 inches. With a radio, you can activate a friendly unit within 18 inches. So it allows you to like coordinate at a distance. Of course, then the price of radio is going to go up and all of that, and you still have the caveat of like it's a once per game thing, but um, it's there. When it comes to their army specialty, we actually again going with the whole coordinate feature. It's essentially a rule for leaders that allow them to become like a general. And if you have a general, basically it can use the coordinate action or the coordinate thing one more time per game. So it's like, okay, you have this special leader that has that can use coordinate twice. One important thing about coordinate, of course, it will have fail safe. So it's like you cannot chain coordinate. So you cannot coordinate your whole army at the same time. So you have to activate coordinate with another unit, and then that's it. And again, also it's only a once per game thing. So you cannot, if you have 5 units or 6 units on the table, you can use it 6 times per game, and that's it. Um, you know, yeah. Essentially, if you yeah. Anyway, this is gonna need some fine tuning and balancing, and I'm very curious to see how it goes. But I like the idea. Yeah, that's about it. That's HDF. And now we're gonna go to the final army, which is infected colonies. Okay, infected colonies. Another one where I'm not 100% sure about it, but I think we're getting kind of onto something here. Um, the thing that I wanted with the infected colonies is really to like focus on their whole like mutating and weird, monster kind of vibe. And so their universal rule would be something called restless, which basically means that every unit has restless, and it means once per game you can double the amount of attacks that you have, but you get -1 to hit. So it's like um, it's like this special, like suddenly, like an outburst of energy or of mutations or of whatever, where your unit of infected zombies suddenly like doubles its attacks and gets way more dangerous. But you get this -1 to hit to kind of balance it out. I'm okay with this one. I'm not super happy with it. I think it needs some tweaking, but I think it works. And again, it's one of those things that like your army still plays the same. It's not like suddenly you're playing a different army. You're just getting like a bonus that you can use once per game. And then their army specialty is something that I'm calling continuous growth. And continuous growth, again, it's something that like you can buy, and then you have to, it's optional, whatever. But continuous growth basically means that, or the way that it works right now is at the start of every round after the first, if the unit is not shaken, it gets a token, like a continuous growth token, which gives it +1 to hit and +1 to defense. So essentially, like the unit gets stronger as the game progresses. So round one, it's at its base strength. Round two, it has +1. Round three, it has +3. Round four, it has +4, right? And it goes on. And I think it's capped at +3. um and yeah, and here the idea is also like having this sort of like interaction with also the other player, where you're like, okay, like I know that unit has continuous growth, so I'm maybe gonna want to like hide it and then wait for the right moment to spring it out. But then the enemy is like, okay, wait, we need to hunt that guy down before it gets like really powerful by round four. Or maybe like we want to avoid it. And also, again, like there is the thing of like, if the unit is shaken, it does not grow. And that's another like little fail safe there, where it's like, okay, like if you're just pounding it and destroying it, it cannot just keep getting stronger and stronger. So there's a bit of like a push and pull there. And yeah, that's it. Again, nothing crazy here. If you're playing infected colonies now, these are some cool new options that you have. But nothing that um, nothing that is crazy that changes everything. I saw somebody ask about Human Inquisition. Right now, I have skipped Human Inquisition. I want to first go through all the armies and then see how I update Human Inquisition. Honestly, I am not sure. I'm not even sure if they are going to get an update. I think they should. I don't know. Human Inquisition is in such a weird spot as an army. Um, yeah, I'm not sure. Okay. All right. So these were 14 armies that we just went through. I really hope that well, I hope that you enjoyed hearing about all of these updates and all of these new cool things. I really hope that this has given you some peace of mind of like, okay, my army is not like suddenly working completely different. And actually, I hope that you're kind of excited. Like if you're an Alien Hives player, I hope you're excited about the fact that like, oh, cool, like I keep my horde in like a big blob, and now they get like a horde bonus. Or if you're playing DAO, I hope that you're excited that you have this thing like, okay, I'm gonna set up my firing line and then hold and like just destroy the enemy by shooting, and like do all these things that feel um, thematic for your army. Woo! All right, cool. This was pretty long. All right, we are now going to move into the Q&A part of this stream. How do I usually do it? Like this? Like this? Whatever. Okay, we're gonna move into the Q&A part of this stream. I am now going to go to the questions that were asked in the forum before the stream, and I'm going to answer those. And after that, Q&A starts here. And after that, I'm going to answer any question that was out um, after the message that I just put out. Okay, let's go. And I'm also going to try and be fast because we're already 2 hours into this, and I don't want to have a 3 hour thing. Okay, first question. What is the rumored demonic onslaught exactly? So the demon onslaught basically is the idea of having a probably like a 4 month Patreon release where each month focuses on like one demon faction. Or maybe we'll do a hybrid where like it's kind of like two demon factions at once. I'm not sure. And the idea is basically to like catch up to releasing all of the new units that we have added to the game. And give you a bunch of cool stuff, because part of the problem that we have right now with demons is that, yes, as a whole, when you take all four armies together, they have tons of units, but when you play just one of them, you're kind of stuck. Essentially, most of them are like, okay, you have a warrior, a unit of warriors, maybe you have a cavalry unit. That's kind of it. You kind of have like two main units, and then you have like a hero, or like maybe like a monster hero. And instead here we're adding like a bunch of new units um, to give you more ways to play the army. Okay. If giving us a roadmap is incompatible with the OPR company culture, perhaps we could get a tag cloud graphic with some tags regarding your current activities that we can use as a source of rumors and fan theories. Uh, Roadmaps are not incompatible with our company culture. And in fact, we do post a roadmap every month on Patreon. that tells you what's coming out next month and what's coming out the 3 months after that. So if you want a roadmap, make sure to check it out on Patreon. Usually we release it around the 25th of the month, so we're gonna release it like around now. Okay, next question. Will armies such as Jackals, who are known to be less competitive, get a bit of a boost in the September update to bring them more to par with other armies? Not in the way you think. Maybe they're going to get an update like I described with every other army. Right? They're going to get a universal special rule. They're going to get an army special rule. They're going to get boosts and all these different things. Um, will that make them up to par with other armies and more competitive and whatever? I don't know if people are going to feel that way, but we are not fundamentally changing how units work in this update, if that maybe helps. Is there a particular reason why the Vampiric Undead Skeleton Guards and Champion have specific weapon names like Sword, Mace, and Greatsword, rather than generic ones like Hand Weapon and Great Weapon, like most other Age of Empires units? I think it's because their weapons have a special rule. I think they used to have the Reap special rule or something like that, or Bane, or a rule like this. And so I think that's why they just had a different name. That's about it. It wasn't any particular special reason beyond that. Will there be a digital version of Broken Truth? I mean, I guess, in the sense that like you are no, yes, I don't know. You already can have a digital version of Broken Truth right now, in the sense that all of those miniatures are already available for people that have a 3D printer. So if you have a 3D printer, then you can just go there and buy Starhost and buy Robot Legions, and you can print them. You don't have to wait for the physical version. So there will not there will not be a specific digital version of Broken Truth, because the models from Broken Truth are already available. Is there any interest in making a Lust or War Demon Bard with a violin for Age of Fantasy Quest? I mean, eventually we will make bards for them. I think for Lust, we would probably go for a harp, because they have like the whole harp theme. And for War, so far we had drums, but I'm not sure that we would do drums. Maybe a horn. I don't know if that violin would really fit. But something to think through. Can we expect a balanced update for Warfleet soon? Unfortunately, not. I'm currently focusing on the September release, and like I mentioned before, I'm already like struggling with health issues, and so I'm slowed down on that. And so Warfleets is unfortunately gonna have to wait further. Um, are you planning on producing STLs for the Dwarf helicopter units in the next few months? Yes. We are going to make the Dwarf helicopters. Okay, cool. So that was all the questions that people asked in the. Oh wait, I should probably move my camera so my face is more visible. Those were all the questions that were asked in the thing. And so now I am going to scroll up, and I'm going to start answering the questions that people asked here. Once I get to the bottom, we finally end this stream that has over 2 hours already. All right, question number 1: Age of Fantasy. Any news? Any news about what? I'm not sure. I don't understand the question. Any news? Age of Fantasy is a cool game. I don't know what to tell you. When will the HDF gunships drop? We currently have no plans to release aircraft miniatures. Because I should probably explain why. Because they require an additional engineering effort that we're not currently, up to doing. And then once we do it, we want to do it right. Somebody asks, Titan Lords? Titan Lords. I don't know what the question is, but yeah. Um, uh, would you ever add 40k detachment style buffs? Um, I'm not sure what those are. I'm gonna be honest. I've been kind of out of touch with 40k detail for a while, so I'm gonna say probably not. Like, what we will do is all the things that I described before during the stream. We're not planning anything else. Grimdark Ratman clans anytime in the next 5 years. Sure, in the next 5 years. Let's go. Questions. Any plans on making a football skirmish game? Uh, Football or soccer? We actually had a fantasy sports game a long time ago. And eventually we would love to bring it back, but we're not doing it for now. Also, any chance that there will be an SDK document for special custom special rules? So no, we are not planning on making uh a document explaining how custom special rules are pointed, because they're so specific. It would really make more sense to just like look at, and honestly that's how we work also a lot of times, is like just look at similar rules that have similar calcs to what you need and then adapt the calc to that. But more importantly is we are planning on releasing a rules generator, which basically is a system that allows you to create rules from scratch. The way that it works is pretty simple. I'm going to try and resume the whole thing here to a synopsis. But basically, it's like rules have like three parts. You basically have a trigger, you have a target, and you have an effect. And then within those categories, you're going to have like a bunch of options, which will allow you to create a bunch of rules. And those will then also be automatically costed. We hope that this will cover the needs of most people that want to create custom special rules. Um, yeah. With the recent success of online OPR tournaments led by community organized, any plans to have any official sponsored online OPR tournament? So, all right, I actually had a conversation with my team about the unofficial online OPR tournament lately. There is a problem, which I understand that people don't think about it when they think about like, oh, OPR should just make an online tournament, which is copyright infringement. If we make a tabletop simulator tournament that is official, we cannot have it feature any copyright infringing material. I hope that is understandable. So the only way to do that would be to make a tournament that features only like, for example, our paper miniatures, made to work on Tabletop Simulator. But then you have a problem, which is not all of the armies are available in that form. And even those armies don't have all the units, because certain units don't work as we don't make tanks for paper minis because they don't work. Like you cannot, whatever. Um, and so, if we wanted to do it, it would be a very limited tournament, which I'm not really sure players would want. And it's the same thing with like sponsoring the tournament. It is very difficult for us to sponsor something that might feature, copyright infringing material. So I don't know. Maybe we'll put a poll out there. Yeah, Param, if you're listening, maybe this should be part of the next community poll, which is like, would people want to still participate in an official online tournament if it only features armies that we have released as paper armies and without all those units and all these caveats? If people are still interested, we could make it happen. Off the top of your head, what were some of the ideas you had for HDF spell list? Off the top of my head, you're asking too much. But when there's a big thing. There's lots of changes coming to the game, of course, in terms of like these army rules. And some of the changes are, of course, the spell list. I mentioned that last time. I didn't want to talk about it now because we were going through 14 armies. I cannot go through, whatever it is, 60, 80 spells. But basically, we are kind of redistributing auras and spells throughout the armies. So you will see a lot of auras of your armies change. They will still be more or less in line with the same thing. So maybe like, because basically, sorry, let me explain the problem first. The problem that we see right now is that many or most armies currently use essentially the same 3, 4, 5 auras and the same 3, 4, 5 spells, which makes many armies feel very samey when you play them. And also, a lot of armies just don't actually have access to a lot of hero auras compared to others. There are armies that have 4, 5, 6, 7 hero, upgrades that they can choose, and other armies that have two. And so one of the things that we're doing is, or that I'm doing, I guess, is I'm making sure that every army has access to at least 5 hero auras. So every army is more or less on the same playing field there. And I'm also redistributing special rules for auras and for spells throughout all the armies. So that, for example, right now you have one type of aura, which is like this model and its unit get furious, right? So, and we see this in every other army. And so the idea here was like, okay, let me change it. So like, I know that this hero basically gives a buff to melee, but now let me make it differently. So maybe in one army it's like, yes, this this model its unit get furious, but in another army it's like, okay, this model its unit get AP +1 when charging. Maybe in another army, it's this model and its unit get plus move +4 inches when charging. Maybe another one, it's this model and its unit get, I don't know, some other melee buff. So the idea is that like we want to make sure that your heroes still fulfill the same role, but we don't want all heroes to have the same exact auras all throughout. So there's a big redistribution of things so that you will not see many auras multiple times. And then with spells, it's the same thing. So like we are creating a bunch of new spells. And we're making sure that things are more distributed so you don't have, every army has, a spell that gives their units regeneration, right? So now maybe you have an army that gives regeneration, but you also have armies that give self-repair, and then you have armies that give resistance, and then you have armies that give stealth, and then you have armies that give some other defensive bonus. And so that way it's like, okay, they're still in the category of the defensive bonus, but they don't all have the same thing. On top of that, every army right now is getting 3 spells which are related to some army specific things. So, for example, they will have a specific spell that's related to their universal army rule. They get a specific spell that's related to one of their mark rules, and they get a specific spell that is related to their weapon special rule. So, um, yeah, I cannot go into specifics of which army is getting what spells because again it's too big. But I hope I clarified a bit of like give you some insight into how things are changing. Can Demons of Lust get a rename from Lust to Excess or something like that? Um, Eventually, yes, we do have a plan to eventually change the names of many, most, maybe almost all armies in the game. Of course, change them to something that makes sense with our lore, change them to something that still is familiar that you can understand. So don't go crazy. Don't think that suddenly Ratmen are going to be called, I don't know, I'm thinking of a weird cable folk because I have a cable in front of me, right? So it will still be something that you will recognize, but it will be something that's more unique and that will also make the armies um, easier to refer to and whatever. And then yes, we probably, so what we want to do is we actually have internally specific names. Each Havoc god actually has its own name, just that right now we just stick with the generic like war demons and plague demons and lust demons, but those would change. So then you would have the demons of lust would be called something else, like they would be the demons of whatever the name is of the demon. And actually, yeah, if we want to also change kind of the, I can actually pull it up here. We want to change kind of like the theme to kind of be more in line with what we have for the armies. I'm gonna explain. So, for example, right now, we have the demons of lust, right? So you basically have the goddess of lust. And the idea is that we would change it to something that fits our lore. So instead, she would become the goddess of perfection, which makes sense with her thing. So actually, I can tell you all four. So instead of the goddess of lust, she would be the goddess of perfection. The seeker of change would become the seeker of knowledge. The Lord of Plague would become the Lord of the Many, and um, the what do we call it now? The War Conqueror would become the Eternal Conqueror. So again, names that you can kind of understand. So it's like, okay, you have the Demons of War, which are, again, I don't want to use the actual name of the demon right now until we actually reveal it. But the theme of the demon will be a bit more in line with what we are making with our lore. But again, very recognizable. Okay, if you're removing army-wide region negation, how to use army-wide counterattack as being different? How do you see army-wide counterattack as being different for melee? I don't, and actually that's something that eventually I want to tweak as well. So there are still some army-wide things that right now I'm keeping in the game because they're not priority. But yeah, I definitely think that should be changed. Army-wide counterattack is not great. And yeah, also like I guess one thing that I think is important to remember is once the September update drops and all the armies have updated with a bunch of stuff, it doesn't end there. As always, we're gonna have quarterly updates. So we're gonna look at the player feedback, and if we see like, okay, now we've updated this army and now they have, whatever, this special rule. The DAO have the hold to get +1, and then we realize like, okay, wait, actually, like this is unbalanced, or like it's not fun, or it's whatever. We're gonna update it, right? So the games are gonna keep getting updated. So I also hope players can understand that whatever we do, if we see it's not really gelling well or working well, we will keep updating and changing things. About the Rangers program, will there be an app somewhere playing tournaments will there be an app where playing tournaments or casual games can be easier to register instead of having to go through a website every time? Yes, we are actually working on. We actually even hired an additional programmer to help us develop a new part of the Army Forge app, which will basically automate or integrate all of the Rangers program stuff. And once we have that, let me tell you, Army Forge is gonna be it's gonna be fucking sweet. Um, all right. Will OPR be working on actual novelization of the lore, or are you wanting to use the campaigns and updates as ways of advancing the lore? So actually, the way that the lore is works and is advanced is through sagas, and those are indeed, explored through the narrative campaigns and through the mission packs, and then eventually we would like to do, yes, additional things like maybe novels and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, sorry. Will you be working on actual? Sorry, I feel like I lost myself and answered my own question. The actual question was, will OPR be working on actual novelization of the lore? At some point, yes, for sure. We'll like to make novels. Are you wanting to use the campaigns and updates as ways to advance the lore? Yes, that's how we're currently doing. We're using the campaigns as a way to advance the saga. All right. Will fantasy armies also get these unique rule changes? Yes. Right now, I'm focusing first on Grimdark, and once Grimdark is ready, there will also be an open, probably first a closed beta and then an open beta for Grimdark, and then eventually I will do the same thing for fantasy. The thing is, and I had already explained this before, and I'm gonna throw it out again. Um, the idea is that all of these unique things that are coming to the games are kind of going to be mirrored between the games. So it's already kind of crazy to create like a bunch of special unique stuff for whatever it is, like 25, 26 armies in one of the games, maybe more, 30 armies in one of the games. Um, and doing all that work from scratch for the other game, it's kind of impossible. So we those are going to be mirrored. So, for example, okay, we spoke about the high elf fleets, right? And the high elf fleets get agile, which is like +1 +2 movement, right? I would expect that the fantasy high elves will probably have agile as well. The dark elf raiders have the harassing rule, right? You can move after shooting or melee. I would expect that the dark elves in fantasy will also have the harassing rule. So these type of things. So we have I don't know. We spoke about alien hives, which have the horde courage rule, right? So like if you're near your friendly units, you get a bonus to morale. Maybe I don't know. I don't have the list. I have this written down, but I don't have it here right now. But maybe vampiric undead, instead of having the undead rule, they will have horde courage, right? Maybe name something differently. So again, you can expect a lot of this stuff that we are solving, all of the problems I'm kind of like solving in sci-fi right now, which will then be applied to fantasy, and which will speed up the process of going from one, like from updating all of. Sorry, right now there's a slower process of updating all of Grimdark, and once all of that is done and all of it is in the app, it's going to be much faster to update fantasy. Can the missions jam also include rules? I'm not sure what you mean. Uh, if you go check out how missions are made for OPR, they do include special rules. Can I make football rules for the jam? No, I mean, yes, I guess. So you have to make rules that are compatible with the games. That being said, if you make a mission that has a bunch of special rules which allow you to play like a football game, yeah, that could work. Is there a chance to get HDF paper minis soon? Yes. I don't know about soon, but I know that that's definitely something that we are working on. Would you ever consider making multiple spell lists for an army? No, not right now. What is the priority to continue making paper minis? We basically make paper minis in the order in which minis came out. So I don't know. Shadow Stalkers came before Wood Elves, so you can expect Shadow Stalker paper minis and then Wood Elf minis. High Elf fleets came before HDF, so you can expect after High Elf fleets you're gonna see HDF and so on and so forth. Okay. Will Custodians be losing army-wide fearless with the shift in the special rule direction? I don't remember. They might actually get to keep it, but I'm not sure. Let me try and see here in my notes. In the latest version that I have, they do still have fearless, yes, but they don't get steadfast, so they don't have the special uh, Battle Brothers version of fearless. There's actually something that I have to throw out there, which is that we are eventually going to do a big, well, relatively. We're gonna do some substantial lore changes for some of the stuff in the game, and in my current the dream of it, Custodian Brothers will not be tied and related to Battle Brothers anymore. And then at that point, I think certain expectations that we have in terms of rules of like, well, the Battle Brothers work like this, so the Custodian Brothers should work like this, would kind of vanish. Um, okay, we are at the last questions. Will there be a focus on developing the Battle Prime Brothers detachment lore, and will we see any further detachments? Oh yeah, actually, I wanted to throw this out there. You can expect any changes that we're doing to Battle Brothers to essentially apply the same way to Prime Brothers. So Prime Brothers right now have Army Wide Fearless. No, they would get Army Wide Steadfast. Vanilla Prime Brothers right now don't have any special rule. They would get the Rapid Fire rule. Sorry. Will there be a focus on developing the Battle Prime Brothers detachment lore? We actually have internal lore that we've developed for the detachments, which eventually we probably should reveal more of. Will we see any further detachments? We don't have any plans for them right now. Okay, there's one more question. Will there be how will the changes to army-wide rules affect point costs of units? They are rules, so they will cost points and they will be on the units. So I assume that this means that overall, like throughout the entire game, most units will cost a little more. Depends on the unit and depends on the rule. One thing that we have a global sort of lever that we have for OPR where we can see like, okay, after we do all these updates, we can look at the point cost value of all units across the board. And if we see, for example, like, okay, with this update now, everything has become 10% more expensive, then we can go in the system and essentially like tweak the point. There's like a multiplier essentially that we can tweak like backwards, and that way the units will not be 10% more expensive, it will stay the same. But of course, the proportional value of things will change, right? So it's like, I'm going to give an example. Like, imagine if before a unit cost 100 points and now it costs 110 points, and then a weapon upgrade cost 10 points. I'm going to give you a very stupid example. Like, upgrading a weapon costs 10 points, right? Well, maybe if we decide to do that back tweak, then the unit will now cost, 100 points, and then the upgrade will cost 5 points. I don't know. So the proportional, right? The cost proportion between each other. I don't know if I'm saying the right words. Is basically changing. Anyway, I hope this makes sense. But we will have to see how it affects the game. And yeah, okay, we're almost 2 hours and 30 into this. This was the last question. Thank you so much for joining, everyone. I really hope you liked hearing about the v3.5 army updates. I hope it helps you breathe in and like understand that your army is going to be fine. Your army is actually probably going to be cooler than it was before because it gets a bunch of cool new stuff. And yeah, I hope you're gonna enjoy it. I'll be doing the next stream in July, end of July, probably 31st of July. That's the last Thursday of the month. I am hoping, but I cannot guarantee anything. I'm hoping that by then, I've been in better health and will hopefully be already in full private beta swing, which would be cool, and getting some good feedback on that. All right. thank you, everyone. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.